Hey YouTube, and in an unprecedented amount of character growth, I almost am so close to discovering what writing a script is, but I've made a little PowerPoint slide because I think it's cute. Anyways, today I'm going to be throwing my hat into the ring, talking about all of the new growth changes and what my opinion on it is. So first of all, let's just start with what has actually happened. For one, growth times have been increased, and a lot of growth times don't seem to make very much sense. I will be trying to make sense of some of the growth times and maybe giving arguments as to why they could make sense, but ultimately why it shouldn't make sense and why we should push for a better system before I myself, with all of the egotism of a white man with nothing to lose, put my opinion into the ring and therefore assume it is the correct one. So, let's continue. Let's start with reasons for longer growth from a player perspective, because believe it or not, there are reasons why you would want things to grow longer. So the first one is, you'd need to leave your AFK spot at least once to refill your diets. If you consider a 3-hour Tenno growth, yes, I know it's being decreased to 2 hours 30. I've watched the fucking Cav video. Do not worry. You would have to leave to refill your diets completely to finish your growth with perfect diet, right? Because by about halfway through, you will run out of hunger, therefore you will run out of growth. So therefore it forces you to, even if you are AFKing, you still need to leave your AFK spot for a moment. Because right now in the game, if you AFK with the Raptor, with perfect diet, you will get to about 70% growth. Currently with the new system, you get to the exact same amount of growth, weirdly enough, with the 100% boost. So it could be, but we'll have to see how it really affects stuff like that. But in theory, especially when we start getting to the really big playables, I mean stuff like Aloe, and if they change the growth times for Apexes, this is 100% a point. If you're growing a Stego, by the time you hit sub, you are going to need to refill your diets. And you're probably not going to be big enough to hold your own against, like, you know, a group of Cerados or a group of Carnos. Or when you start to get to sub and you need to refill your diets, you may not even be, you know, enough to really go up against a group of Aloes. But I'm saying group here, because it still is a Stego. We have to remember this. It still has a swing that can just one-shot things to the head. So consider that. Second of all, it allows people to enjoy certain aspects of sub growth. For example, sub Tenno and Kana are actually rather fun. This is something I will come across later on in the video. Some of you may not know this, but the different things you can do throughout your growth are actually rather interesting. Believe it. I know. Strange. You may be thinking, but how do you know? The reason is, it's because I've done it myself. A sub Raptor, for example, is faster than an adult Raptor. If you look at a Dilo has not got a good turn like Raptor. Trust me, this makes sense in a moment, but it has more speed, right? By like 0.1 of a meter per second. Like it's really minuscule when you put it into meters per second, but in kilometers an hour, it's bigger. It's basically a difference of like 1. But the point is, the Dilo can travel just that little bit of extra distance, which means if a Stego does certain swings in certain directions, Dilo actually has the time to run in greedily, get a bite, and run out, and only take a tail hit. This is very, very important on a tail hit, because for a Raptor, you'll be taking a body hit, because it's just that small amount of distance. With a sub Raptor, you do the exact same thing. You're faster than the adult Raptors, which means while you're doing less damage, you can actually do some really greedy run-ins. And by doing multiple greedy run-ins, your damage actually begins to exceed the adult Raptors, because the adult Raptor needs to play more carefully. You, however, can play more recklessly. You see how this all comes together. There's actually differences between the subs and the adults that could become far more interesting if the devs lean into that aspect. Second of all, it will make the growth difference between Apexes and small tiers more noticeable. For example, I do not want to see an Aloe after 3 hours of growth, maybe push it to 4 to 5 hours. What this point is meaning is this. It is that if you take the current growth values currently, so a Raptor is about 75 minutes, Kana is like 1 hour 45, a Tenno is about the same, etc. I don't know, I'm fairly sure Tenno and Kana was like 2 hours 15 or so. Oh, something weird like that, who cares? Point is, if we take those growth times, to get to Aloe, we're growing an Aloe in about 3 hours. Right? If you consider that. What I thought the devs were going to do were to make it so that the Kana and Tenno's growth is slightly higher or lower, and the Stego's growth is much larger, which leaves a big room of a few hours for all of the mid-tiers to be slotted nicely into, so that you don't have to ask yourself the question of, why would I grow a Tenno when I can just grow like a Maya in 1 extra hour? Instead, growing a Maya might take 2 extra hours. That makes sense. You've almost doubled your growth time for, a bit more than doubled your stats, but that is still an investment, especially if you are encouraged to move around the map and, get shit done and be vulnerable. That's the main thing. It's being vulnerable. That's the main stuff. People will say stuff like, oh, but Apexes are balanced to be so strong because they take so long to grow. I mean, Stego was taking 4 hours to fucking grow during the whole test. A Tenno took like 3. Do you really think a Stego was that hard to grow? When at the 3rd hour of growth as a Stego, equal to the Tenno, you are far stronger than the fucking Tenno. Throughout the entirety of the growth time, the Tenno is weaker than you and is more vulnerable. We can't really use the argument of the Apexes are hard to grow. Never mind the fact that the Apex herbivores are not hard to grow, because you go to Sanctuary, you get perfect diet, you go to Migration Zone, you keep perfect diet, you sit in bush, you grow, you then complain because no one wants to fight you, and then you just start body camping. So it doesn't actually matter, does it? It doesn't actually matter. It's not an argument, unfortunately. I will, however, concede on the fact that if growth is changed and you are incentivized to actually move and be in a vulnerable position, it would be harder to grow an Apex. Should Apexes be harder to grow? Probably, given the fact that they will be the strongest things in the game. Or B, we make it so that the Apexes are strong throughout every growth cycle of their life. So a sub-Tenno, like a Juvie Stego, at the end of its Juvie stage of its growth, is comparable to a Tenno. It's like 1.8 tons, right? At the end of that part of the growth. A sub-Stego is comparable to a Maya. An adult Stego is beyond a Maya, meaning that through each stage of its growth it is now a threat. Believe it or not, this is already a fucking thing. Pretty much a Juvie Stego can 2-tap a Raptor in the head. Full adult Raptor. And the Raptor can't 2-tap you in the head. Unless it pins you. But if it tries to pin you with the new changes, it can actually mess up, or it could just miss. Point is, there are stuff. There are things. Anyways, but here we go into the big one, which is, in my opinion, it forces the devs to go into issues around growth and things to do during that growth. If they make growth times longer, and they keep growth times longer, we will get consistent long-term results from what the game looks like at longer growth. Is it healthier? Does the game become healthier, for example? If you put aside their biases of, I hate long growth, is the game healthier? That's one thing. And second of all, what can the devs introduce into that growth stage that, would make it more fun? People might then be like, okay, cool, I'm an hour and a half into my Tenno growth, or 3 hours, right? And you maybe have a thought in your head of like, oh, how cool would it be if, like, as a Tenno, I could do this or do that? And then you put that idea through, and all of a sudden, Tenno now has an interaction it can do with the environment that could be really, really fun, that it can do when it's a sub-adult. That idea. Let's continue. Issues with longer growth. See, I'm not just biased. A few of the playables have very awkward phases. For example, Paki, where it's still pinnable but slower than a Raptor, especially as it just finished being faster than a Raptor, and I call this a whiplash effect. What does this mean? As I was saying before, with subs being faster and having better stamina consumption than adults, you enter some really, really weird phases with certain dinosaurs where you lose your speed faster than you gain your weight. Meaning that, as the game is trying to convey to you as a player, hey, look, you've had a lifetime of running away. Now it's time to start. Or like for carnivores, you've had a lifetime of scavenging and picking on things more than you. Herbivore, you've had a lifetime of running away and being stealthy. Now it's time for you to be aggressive. Now it's time for you to put your destiny in your own hands, manifest it. Hoorah, who cares, right? So, I call that the whiplash effect. When the game is expecting you to do one thing, but doesn't properly give you the tools to do that thing. That is an issue. It causes you to double think and go, I don't know what I want to do. Do I want to fight? Do I want to run? And then you kind of feel like you can't do either. So, that is an issue. Second issue, people will bush camp for longer, right? Even if they make it so that you have to refill your diets halfway through your growth, because they're all down to 0, you just fill them back up again and go back into a bush. Nothing's really changed. It's just going to be more tedious, right? And second of all, people hate longer growth as they have nothing to do. Right? That's the big crux here. I have nothing to do at longer growth. Right? So do we solve that by making growth more interesting? Or do we solve that by making the stages of growth more unique to each other in terms of what you can do? Or three, we just say, fuck it, and we just shorten growth again. So looking at, there you go, pure evidence. I watched Kaz's latest video. We look at the growth times. Is there anything we can see from the growth times, especially for these 4 dinosaurs here, that might point towards an element of intelligent design? Galley was a good one. Galley was about 2 hours to grow a Galley, which is ridiculous. I agree. I too believe it's ridiculous, but I can kind of understand the methodology. Being that, once you fully grow your Galley, you are effectively immortal. You can run away from any problem, right? As long as you stay above 75% stam, you can just keep trotting, but your trot is slower. Meaning that something with enough perseverance could chase you down, in which case you just blow the rest of your stamina and just sit. They're never going to find you. They're not going to find you. They're just going to give up. So there's always that. But I still think it is ridiculous because Galley is your small to grow herbivore that in large groups can pick on bigger carnivores, and it has the ability to escape from any combat situation, which means Galley is a very, very forgiving herbivore. What do I mean by this? Galley allows you to start a fight in a group of Galleys and then leave the fight whenever you want, right? And while you may face some consequences, you're not fucking dead. For example, if a Tenno decides to square up to 2 Carnos that are trying to kill it, and it decides to fight, and does some good damage to the Carnos, and the Carnos do some good damage to the Tenno, but the Tenno still knows that even though those Carnos have both taken half of their health, the Tenno is also below half of its health, and they still have a full Carno's health bar left. So the Tenno decides, I'm going to run, but oh wait, it's blown all of its stamina in fighting. It now cannot run. It gets mauled to death. Does that make more sense? Galley is very, very forgiving. You can actually switch what you want to do. You could start the fight as a group, taking it in turns to run in and kick. And then if one of you gets injured a lot, and maybe, half of you get pretty injured, you can all decide, cool, let's all just one call, get a speed boost, and get the fuck out of there. Very, very, very simple. But let's try to look at, from everything that the devs have introduced into the game, reasons for longer growth from the devs, or what I would do as a dev, right? And of course, I'm just assuming of what the devs want because the game is more complicated than any of us could understand. And I do not want to be throwing out little theories and having people think that these are actually what the devs want. This is just what I would do as a dev, which is 1. I'd like to see how players react, and will they venture out and be more confident? Will players bite the bullet and go, cool, I'm a sub-Tenno. I've never really played sub-Tenno before, properly. I've only ever just played when I was an adult. Let's see how it goes. Will they be more confident? And if they aren't as confident, what can we do to make them more confident or to let them know they are going to be more confident without just pushing them into the deep end? Because I will get to this point at the very, very end. It's very, very important to just keep that on a pin in the back of your head, along with the other points that I've said that I've told you to keep a pin on. So it also increases early game competition. That's what you want, right? It's a survival game. You want to increase the early game competition, so the best of the best make it out of the early game with the best head start, and then the rest of the players begin to fight with themselves, and then the players who aren't that good at the game instead are then scavenging at the end. So you create a list. It's not every single Carno makes it out of Juvie and grows a Carno. It's the best Carnos make it out first. Then the second best Carno makes it out of Juvie first, and then so on and so on and so forth, right? Because there's less and less and less competition. So you want to make it so that less players get to full growth on their first try, right? You want to keep the ecosystem fresh. If everyone becomes an adult and there's nothing to kill you as an adult because they just don't want to fight, what happens? More simple. Having weaker members and older members of a group or even a herd for herbivores will create weaknesses which can be exploited, and you don't want to be that weak one. So there you go. It will actually encourage nesting. Consider that for a moment. It will encourage nesting if you have a longer growth time. Why? Well, it's very, very simple. And why I think this could happen if they give nesting a little bit of a buff or a tweak. The reason is, as a Juvie herbivore, the best way to grow is to go to a sanctuary and then go to a migration zone once you're bigger, right? Which means you need to find that herd. A herd, however, can just nest you in, and now you have the protection of the herd. You don't need to run to a sanctuary, and you can get perfect diet straight off the bat. Haha. This is actually a reason to encourage nesting. Once again, as I do say, this is what I would do as a dev. So I would implement changes to encourage this. These are our aims. And second of all, encourage sanctuary use. Completely juxtaposed to encouraging nesting. It encourages nesting when you want to get people into a group faster, and it encourages sanctuary use for when you, as a player, just want to grow. First of all, makes adding mid-tiers easier as gaps in the growth are larger. We've already gone through this. So, how many of these things have really been addressed with the growth thing? I would admit there is a bit more early game competition, especially during carnivores, and that's for the lines diet. The QA members have said themselves that they balance the carnivores around a 2-1 diet. Probably the diet that they're missing is lines. Why? Because pretty much for every single fucking carnivore, except for Dino and Pteranodon and Troodon, I think, but those are the three. So for Carno, Dino as well. Why is Dino the apex? What? Who cares? But for Carno and Raptor, holy shit, it's just Carno and Raptor. That's embarrassing. Who cares? Your lines diet is tied to a player. To get the lines from a player, either from a player that is equal to lines in their body or their intestines, or intestines, you need to kill them. And to kill that thing, you can then eat it. Which means, if you kill a Dryo as a raptor, and everything else that needs to eat lines smells your fucking lines, they're going to come after you. So there is actually some competition there. I'll give them props for that. Is it a little bit annoying? Kind of, but what can you do? See how players will react. Will they venture out more and be more confident? No. What I've seen so far, no. No, they don't. I'm very sure most players don't even actually understand that, like, sub-dinosaurs are faster than their adult counterparts and have better stamina drain. I don't think they know that yet. Or maybe they do, they just don't care, because when I'm a sub-10 and a Carno sees me, you can just run away from it. You genuinely can just run away from it at that growth. So who cares if the Carno sees you? Like what? You have to waste 2 minutes to run away from the Carno? That would then never catch you and just return back to what you're doing? Like, what are you going to do when you're an adult? Run away from the Carno? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the weird thing. It's like, players will end up doing the exact same thing when they hit the adult regardless. Or you'll try fighting the Carno, lose to the Carno, and die. So why not just... Who cares? Who cares about learning skills during your growth and then using the skills that you learn as an adult to play better at the game? No, of course not. But actually, I realized I actually got distracted earlier on as well. So we see here, with a 3-hour Tenno and a almost 2-hour Omnigrow, Raptors will be finding Tennos before they're adults, which makes them an easier fight. Very, very interesting. Ha 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 ha. Right? Omni and Paki, right? We get it. There's a rivalry here. But the thing is, with Raptors finding Tennos before they're fully grown, you have Carno. There's 2 hours, 9 minutes. So you're telling me, because I mainly play Raptor, I think Raptor's rather fun, right? Not to say I don't like the rest of the dinosaurs, except for Tenno. Not Tenno, except for Stego. I hate Stegos. I hate playing Stego. I can respect people who do like playing Stego, especially when they're good at playing Stego. And I also dislike playing Dino, simply because while it's fun, I don't know. I want to be doing something. That's my issue. But why is Carno 11 minutes slower to grow than a Raptor? You know? For... Like, genuinely. For like what? For almost just over 3 times the stats? Huh? Like you as a QA member, in my opinion, I don't mean to go after you, but you've said this, so I'm going to assume that this is a coherent methodology throughout the group. If you are saying that you have balanced the carnivore growth times around 2-1 diets, so 2 S's, 1 hex, for example, or 2 hex, 1 S, then why would you make Carno and Raptor basically the exact same growth time? Why? Because that has nothing to do with herbivore versus carnivore growth. Because yes, it is easier as a herbivore to get perfect diet than a carnivore. Absolutely correct. Right? Unless you fix the organ system. in which you get more diets out of organs. I would not mind, as a Juvi Raptor, if I kill a Juvi Cerrado or a Juvi Carno, that their intestines fill up my bar. I'm perfectly fine with that. And then you can make the carnivore growth longer. But 2 hours, 9 minutes to grow a Carno. I personally believe that to be rather silly. I think it's rather silly. I feel like you didn't really consider properly the impact that would have. Because why would I ever grow a Raptor when I could grow a Carno? The only reason why I'd ever grow a Raptor now is if I specifically wanted to play Raptor and I specifically wanted to hunt Stegos. Because Carno isn't as good at hunting Stegos as Raptor is. That's the only reason. And if I just think to myself, to be honest, why do I want to waste my time in a 45-minute fight versus a Stego when I could just play Carno, basically be blasting out Need for Speed soundtracks, and then just charge into things and just have way more fun? Obviously, I'm going to pick the Carno. So if Carno pick rates now miraculously escalate into the fucking stratosphere, we now know why. And like, it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, if you want to make a change like this, you know, just make the Raptor faster grow than the Carno. Make it so that a Raptor meets a Carno and a Tenno at fully grown, if they all start growing at the exact same time, at subadult stage. And the Pachy grows just after the Raptor does. So if the Raptor took 45 minutes, like it does currently, as it does in Life Branch of Perfect Diet, the Pachy just takes 15 minutes longer. Maybe half an hour longer, depends, right? You can fuddle those numbers, right? But Carno is just behind Pachy as well. I don't know. That makes me feel sad. But anyways, let's talk about how we can fix some things to make ourselves feel happier with our lives. So, what is the Pachy problem? There you go, cool. So, Pachy has a very, very big awkward stage. What is that awkward stage? The awkward stage is that as it is going from sub to adult, it gains its weight slower than it loses speed. So it's rapidly losing speed, and it's not gaining weight. So the issue is that the Pachy is pinnable by the Raptor. I don't actually think being pinnable by the Raptor is the main problem, because of the idea of vulnerability, which is why we have counterpoint, vulnerability. However, I am not just a egotistical dickhead, right? I'm not a dickwad. So I actually have the ability to compromise. Due to years of office culture empathy meetings, I have gained the ability to look at my fellow man without being disgusted. So, what is my compromise I have suggested? Yay! We have that when the Pachy becomes the same speed as the Raptor, its head charge can knock a Raptor down. So while you can still be pinned, you can slam that Raptor down. Then if you hit them with a second knock, so as they're still on the ground, you can just hit them again, you fracture it. But I would make it so that the damage is rather small. Why is this? This means that while you are still vulnerable to the Raptor, right, and you've gotten the upper hand, you are taught an important lesson. It is not about, oh, but I'm a Pachy and the Raptor's like, you know, because he's still bigger than you, remember? If he can pin you, he's still bigger than you. So we can't use the argument of, well, I'm bigger, so I kill him. We can't use that. Instead, we can actually teach you a lesson, right? If you choose to keep coming in, get in on the Raptor, and let's just say, for example, you miss your first knockdown and the Raptor starts biting you, and you hit your second one, but then you somehow miss the third, and you hit the fourth, you may have taken a shit ton of damage. You may have even almost died from that. But it's taught you a lesson. The lesson that you've learned is that sometimes you just need to get the fracture and run away. Now, where would this lesson be very, very important? A Carno. It'd be pretty damn fucking important if you ever met a Carno. You just fracture his legs and you run away. You fracture his body and you run away. You fracture his head. You can actually still kind of run away because it can't really see you, but it can hear you. And weirdly enough, by making the screen darker, your brain instinctively starts making your ears more the focus of your brain. So that's kind of ironic. But when its head fractures, you can fracture its legs because it can't really see you properly. So ta-da, you can now get out. But you've learnt that lesson. You've learnt that lesson while you still had a fighting chance. Because if you do not learn that lesson versus a Carno, and the Carno somehow completely outplays you, or even ambushes you, and knocks you over and starts biting you, right? Even when you're that low health, you still have a chance to turn that fight around, get the fracture, and then run away. You still have that chance. If you do not learn that lesson, and you just try bonking them, and just continuously bonking them until you know they die, 1v1 if the Paki tries to kill the Kano 1v1, it will die. In fact, 2v2, the Kano can actually just face tank the damage from 2 Pakis, as long as it doesn't get its head fractured, which is very, very easy to do, right? So what does it do? It teaches Pakis that as you start to lose your speed, you want to get aggressive, right? And we can actually kind of see that with the Pakis model. As you start to get from sub-adult to adult, you lose the spikes around your dome, and instead your dome becomes more pronounced. You know, visually, in terms of visual storytelling. So I really like it when games gives you more like visual storytellings and clues as to how you want to play the game. I love games that give you a tutorial without you realizing you are in a tutorial. Stuff like that is very, very good game design in my opinion. It's, voila, beautiful game design. In the exact same way, at the beginning of Elden Ring, you walk out the doors at the beginning of Elden Ring, you're presented with this open world. And what do people do? First of all, people decide to stab the NPC that isn't hostile to you, which, by the way, is the first NPC in the game that isn't hostile to you. Many people stab him, repeatedly, may I add, until he aggroes, and then he blasts their fucking shit him. He gives them the belt, if you will, right? Second thing people do is that they run towards the giant sentinel tree soldier and get their butts handed to them. And then they complain the game is too punishing. The reason is because the game was teaching you something there. It was teaching you that in an open world, you don't need to fight everything that comes your way. You can actually go, get stronger, and come back. Similar to many JRPG games like Dragon Quest. I love Dragon Quest. So, this teaches the Paki that there's going to come a time in your life when you're going to have to be aggressive. And when you are playing aggressive, you still have the choice to get the fracture and run away. And there should be no shame in doing that. Because you survive, right? The goal of the game is to survive. It is not, you know, the Isle hardcore deathmatch simulator. It's the Isle, the hardcore survival game. Survival is paramount. It is key. Remember that. So that is how I personally would fix the Paki issue. Which, if we now do this for every single small matchup in the game, you can actually make sub-adult growth more interesting. Sub-adult Paki is faster than a Raptor, and it can bully other sub-adult Raptors and Cerados and Kanos. Then, when it hits to, you know, pre-adult, adolescent sub, right? Or a Dom Paki, if you want to call it that. It can actually now square up against a fully grown Raptor, but it will struggle to kill the Raptor. Instead, what it learns is that if I get ambushed, still, I will die until I get to full adult, where the Raptors will be pouncing me instead of pinning me, right? But I also have the ability to be aggressive and stand my ground, and hopefully then still get away. Perfect. That is good, smart game design. I love that. Now, how would I make a growth system? Given that I've just talked about how I would improve things during growth. How would I personally make a growth system? Well, simple. First of all, I set out my aims. The aims are so important. Makes you feel like you're back at school. So, I would reward good players with good growth for their efforts. Simple as that. That's a very, very simple aim. I would make people confident at all stages of growth to venture out and do things, right? Which I've displayed here, is that I am willing to make these things and changes in the game to make it more fun for both sides to venture each other. It's not just, sub-adult Paki can now shit on Raptor. Take that, Raptor main. And I'm not coming at you with the mentality of, well, I'm a Raptor and I'm pretty much a Raptor main. Fuck you. I don't care if you can get pinned and you're slower than me. You should just hit it in a bush, because it's a reductive argument, effectively. What we both end up doing is just both of us now play in staler and staler ways, and the game never becomes fun. So, life lessons here. Second of all, I want to make sanctuaries important. By extension, make nesting important. Another one, I want to spread out juvies from adults. Okay, which therefore makes nesting important. So we could put this here, which would make nesting important. Perfect. So I want to spread juvies from adults, and I want to spread out subs from adults. And this should be bracket apex. I've got to include that. When I was redrafting this, I had to include the apex in the later slide, but I've got to do it here because I'm a silly Billy. Ha ha ha. And then, of course, at the end, haha, where did that come from? Make nesting important. How would I do this? I would make it so that GV dinosaurs of all creeds can only smell sanctuaries. Your GV raptor can only smell a sanctuary. Your GV stego can only smell a sanctuary. Cool. You can't smell the migration zones. Right. Do I want them to smell the plants? No, not really. I don't really want them to smell the plants. But if you're a good enough player where you can just tell what plant is which by looking at it, which isn't that hard to do, yeah, sure, whatever. You can have that reward of just being good enough at the game to recognize a plant and stay in the migration zone regardless. But for most players, they're now going to head towards sanctuaries. Second of all, actually, in line with this, change herb diets to show very icon brackets. So one thing that's annoyed me for a very long time is the fact that the sanctuary icon does not appear in the character tab where it says mushroom. Instead, it just shows the 3 arrows, likely meaning, obviously, it fills up all 3 slots. However, I would like to have the sanctuary icon next to that. Meaning that, as a player, you will check your character page, see the sanctuary icon and the word mushroom next to it. You would then hold Q to sniff and smell this big old thing of a sanctuary there, and you'd run there. I don't know why. I also feel like I've gaslit myself into thinking it doesn't already show the sanctuary icon, or if it used to in the past. I don't know, so maybe being stupid. So take this one with a great grain of salt. Second of all, sub-apexes have different migration zones to apex adults. Well, turns out I actually did that anyway, so you guys. This is now with the big balls. The higher your hunger and nutrients, the greater the growth buff. However, the higher your hunger and nutrients, the faster they go away, because you're growing faster. To compensate for this, the lower your food and nutrients, the less growth you get, and the lower your food and nutrients, the slower they go away. Another thing to add AI frogs and rats to sanctuaries, both giving a different diet, S for frog, lines for rats. Why is this? It is because, as a GV carnivore, you spawn in with Hex. The frog gives you the S. The rat gives you the lines. Ta-da. Second of all, improve the awkward phases. Oh gosh, I need to make the fucking... Sorry. Bear with me. Bear Grylls. Bear with me. Come on. Hell yeah, buddy. Cool. There you go. Improve the awkward phases in growth for dinosaurs. Very, very simple. Whenever we see a awkward phase in the game, like the Padkey example, we create a system to remedy it, which not only teaches both players how they should encounter each other, but also makes it fair, right? Because what this game needs to do a lot of is actually teaching the players how to, play the game. By playing the game, may I add. Not just a little pop-up box appears on your screen and tells you the latest meta and how to fight Carnos as a raptor. No. More so, you just learn by playing the game. Because you can always just go to YouTube and just type in, oh, what's the best way to kill a Carno as a raptor? Which, believe it or not, there is a strategy for doing that. Maybe I'll cover it one day. Maybe you should beg. So, the last one here is rebalance growth times in accordance to the new system. Wunderbar. And rebalance how apexes are played at different growth stages. A weird one to add, but we'll get to it. So, let's have a look at our brand new sanctuary. Here is a sewer rat. A man was holding it, so I had to crop out his finger, so now he just looks kind of deformed. Let's just put him here. He's sleeping. He will give you lines. Here's a frog. Ribbit. Frog, guys, yay. It'll give you S. There you go, simple as that. What a sick change. So now what will happen is that GV carnivores or GV herbivores will be sent to migration zones to eat mushrooms. They'll be playing selfie. The GV carnivores are now running around because the GV carnivores have an easier time getting an AI frog than killing a player Tenno. They will make the choice to either A, I stalk and kill a GV herbivore, or B, I go after the guaranteed rat or the guaranteed frog. Right? Which means, if the carnivores decide to go after the guaranteed rats and the guaranteed frogs, they'll be running around the sanctuary. As they are running around the sanctuary, as a herbivore player, you have an easier time seeing them from afar and an easier time avoiding them. However, if the carnivore player decides, you know what, fuck the rats and frogs, I'm gonna kill a GV Tenno, and he stalks around where all the mushrooms are, and he finds your GV Tenno eating mushrooms, and he goes wah and just kills you, that's on him. And that's also on you. Basically, both sides shouldn't let their guard down, and both sides should be aware that they have multiple options to deal with this. Very, very simple. Ta-da. Now we have this, the big one. The thing I just can't get you out of my head. Stegosaurus. Anyways, how I would make a long growth system interesting for Apexes, but also teaches them how to play the dinosaur. So 1, make the growth maybe 9 to 12 hours, so 3 to 4 hours per stage. I know, some of you are going to see 9 to 12 hours and literally die of a heart attack. I get it. I mean, I get it. Like, because some of you hear the words, letters, numbers. I'm stupid. See the numbers, 9 to 12 hours, and your brain doesn't go 9 to 12 hours of playing a juvie, sub, and adult stego, and, you know, learning how to... No. What you think of is sitting in a bush for 9 to 12 hours. That's what you think of. What you think is, you're going to make me wait 9 to 12 hours before I can play the fucking game? I hope that noise explains to you how I feel whenever I get people who think like that. No offense to those people. I mean, technically, yes, offense to those people. But at least give me the decency where if I can offend you, you can offend me. Right? Because you already offend me by thinking that way and playing that way. So technically, in my mind, we're already equal. So, let's go. So, each stage should behave differently and show the player a different way of playing said dinosaur. You see, I'm not just a dickhead. I'm giving you guys solutions to problems, just through my way. Through tough love. So, right? What does this mean? What does this mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? Cool. Well, what we can do, actually, let's continue reading it, and then I'll get into the singing section of this video. Oh, that's right, you guys didn't know? There's a singing section to this. So each stage should have a counterpart to an existing dinosaur or a way of playing similar to another dinosaur. What does this mean? This means that if you are playing let's just take, for example, a Rex. You are playing a Rex. You could make it so that Rex's stages, juvie, sub, and adult, actually play very, very similar to an existing dinosaur. For example, Sub Rex will play very, very similarly to Alberto. A juvie Rex may at the beginning play very, very similarly to a raptor in terms of biting, and then become more like a Carno in terms of ambushing, and then becomes more like an Allo in terms of ambushing as a small sub, then becomes more like Alberto instead of ambushing as a larger sub with a bone break maybe, let's say. You see? But throughout your growth cycle, you learn different things. As a juvie Rex, you are fast, you are a bully. You can actually afford to just run after things and start biting. It's a very, very low skill entry. But in the meantime, you yourself are very, very vulnerable. When you start to hit as a bigger sub, you become more like Carno sized. In which you start to learn, well, I can afford to run around. But you might then start, the perky Rex players with their brain switched on, might go, while I do have the stamina to run around, I can actually get in a lot of damage if I ambush something. You know, and then chase after them. Which is be a very, very useful thing to learn now than later. Because once you start to hit sub, you are now faster than your juvie, of course, but you now have less stamina than your juvie. Which means you need to get that damage in now, and you need to get it in fast. Which means you have to ambush. You are now ambushing like an Allo. You are running in, you are doing damage, you are chasing them down, right, to finish the job. When you hit into a bigger Rex, you now have bone breaks or your pins or whatever. Perhaps you can pin at every single stage of your growth. It's just harder to pin as a juvie Rex because everything else you're hunting is also really, really fast. As you start to hit into a bigger juvie Rex, you're now bigger than them. You can actually now start pinning the things you used to chase after. Same thing with Allo size. You're now starting to pin Carnos and Tenos. And then you're starting to pin Allos. You see, it keeps going up the chain. You're learning as you play. You see? And then when you hit Adult Rex, you now lose that speed, that of the Sub Rex, right? Or maybe you are faster than the Sub Rex, but you have way less stamina. Way less. You are now forced to ambush. You have to learn those choke points. And if you were playing the Rex the way that the devs had wanted you to play, you would go through those stages of being very, very free to chase things down at a juvie, into slowly but surely being shown the direction of ambushing. If you didn't ever realize, this was just my Rex idea, by the way, just ambush Rex is the idea that I would like for Rex. Keep that in mind. But if, with my idea, you were adamant on chasing things down as Rex, you were going to suffer greatly once you hit subadult, because you just won't have the stamina to chase things down. But if you realized you could ambush things, I would reward you with the ambush by doing a shit ton of fucking damage. You see? So that's how it works. So now we're going to talk about Stego, and we're actually going to talk about an earlier point back here, which is, where is it? Just to spread out GVs from adults and to spread subs from adults. And we're going to be looking here at the migration zones. Currently, Stego has a migration zone in Swamp and also has one in Highlands. Those are the two that I'm mainly focused on. I would like to keep the Highland zone, but maybe save it for later. I would like it so that adult Stegos are basically big fucking cows, and they are in open fields, right where you can see them. Meanwhile, the sub Stegos will now have the migration zones in Swamp. So for example, a sub Stego will never migrate in the same place as an adult Stego, and a sub Stego will not be sent into a field. Instead, if I could grab the fucking circle, thank you, it will be sent to places with water and shrubbery. So it'll be sent to here. It might even be sent to this area here, right? These circles are just the sub Stego circles. Yeah, it might even be sent to this part of Swamp, right? So Stego might even just do a ring going from this part of Swamp all the way up to here, all the way up to here, all the way along here, maybe like, you know, around and up, and then all the way back down through the forest. Right? It could have a migration zone like that. But how would you engage Stego to have a migration zone different to the adult? Well, what I would do for Stego is, as a juvie Stego, I would make it so that you are very, very good. Never mind the fact that both zones have a sanctuary here, right? So you could actually, as a juvie, hang out with the adults. Go to a sanctuary, hang out with the adults, get into a big juvie, feel more confident, head out. Furthermore, you could have a sanctuary zone here, which we already do. These two are going to be sent. This one doesn't work yet, but this one does. You have a sanctuary zone here. Hang out with the sub-Stegos. Maybe even get some advice from these sub-Stegos from what they did right. They tell you, oh, we went here and we did this and this, and we came here. Then when the sub-Stegos fuck off, right, you now are equipped with knowledge and a bit of growth, you can go out. But what should juvie Stego do? I want juvie Stego to be like a warthog. Yes, a warthog. Take the idea that early paleontologists had about dinosaurs, in which dinosaurs must have been swamp creatures that lived submerged in water because they were so heckin' chunky. You take that idea, but like maybe give it a bit of flair. Juvie Stego, its diets are little roots and things that it digs up from the dirt and from the mud, right? And that's how it lives its life. It lives its life by these waterways, digging up shit like a little hog, you know, and just eating and grazing. Of course, if you pair it with my system here, I forgot how zoomed in I was, right? Where you grow faster, the higher your hunger and nutrients are, but you also lose that hunger and nutrient faster because you're growing faster. You're consuming all of the nutrients that you ate. The better you feed your dinosaur, the faster you grow, but the faster you grow, the more food you need. You see, this means that herbivores have an advantage over carnivores in terms of growth. We could actually then justify giving carnivores a shorter growth than herbivores, right? But of course, carnivores can still eat loads of AI. So as long as AI remains plentiful, I'm perfectly fine with herbivore and carnivore growth being the same. If they reduce AI for carnivores to hunt, and there are just less things to eat as a carnivore, then yes, I wouldn't mind the carnivores being slightly faster to grow than the herbivores. Otherwise, what we will have is a bunch of subadult carnos having to square up to a bunch of fully grown tenos. Those fully grown tenos were able to best exploit this system that I've created and just keep eating, and just accelerate their growth. Because they're just always, you know, at 90, 99, 100%, which I'm perfectly fine with. That's what I want. Because guess what you're not doing if you are eating? Your reward for engaging with the game and eating and being out in the open and vulnerable is that you grow faster. How much faster? I really wouldn't mind if it cut your growth in half. I wouldn't really mind if a 3-hour teno growth became 1.5 hours. So back to the Stego. As a juvie Stego, you are a warthog. You are digging through stuff. So what should sub Stego do? Well, sub Stego, I don't want to be in the plains yet, but I want it to be plains adjacent. It is moving away from the water. You see, it's moving away from it's gone away from water, which is why swamps is good, a mix of water, jungle, and plains. And it's starting to move into the forests around the plains. It has a bunch of forest spawns and forest migration zones that move it around the map. And only until it hits adult is it expected to go into plains. Why is this? Is it so that the adults are in the open and they are able to be seen? But also, if you're a juvie and a sub, and you decide, fuck my migration zone, I'm just going to grow really, really slowly by what? Eating grass? You see, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You see, you'll be out in the open anyways. But it also means that you stay hidden, which means if players want to find and kill sub-adult stegos, they don't need to deal with the adults, right? They need to deal with the subs. But I've already put the subs in places with good terrain, you see? I'm not a dickhead. I haven't just gone, well, you're a sub-adult stego in a plain, you deserve to die. No, I put them in areas like this, rocky outcrops and forests, or even watery areas. I would probably make it so that sub-stego is a better swimmer than adult stego. But I wouldn't mind if sub-stego was a better swimmer than adult stego. It means that if you are crossing a river as a stego family, for example, I probably would have places where adult stegos and juvie and sub-stegos meet up, and they would probably be right around here. These areas here would be where subs and adult stegos meet up. The thing is, while this would be an issue in terms of hunting the subs and the adults, the issue would be solved because the adults and the subs will so quickly and rapidly eat everything that it just moves again. And the subs move here, and the adults move back to here, which is still close enough. And the subs move here, and the adults move up the highlands. And the adults start going back out of highlands, and they go back to South Plains, and they move back here, and they go all the way back around, and they keep moving, at least in my idea for stego migrations, they keep moving around this middle section of the map. You just keep going. Side to side, middle section of the map. You could even maybe get them to go in like an S shape. If I zoom back out a bit. I also wouldn't mind an S shape. They start here, right? And they go along, and they S shape their way down the map. Like that, you see? There's the top of the S, it goes round, out, down, back around, into South Plains, and then back out again. So they'll meet these subs around here, like this. I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's how we can make them different, right? But what lessons will it teach the stego? For one, as a juvie, you are small, you are chunky, you are hitting around waterways, and in mud, where you're basically going to be safe. In mud, dinosaurs your size, remember, in your size, in mud, will be moving slower. Because they are moving slower. If they get close to you, you have time to start learning the ranges of your tail swing. Because they'll be in mud. They'll be in water, same as you. You see? When you hit the sub, you've already had that experience. You're once again by water, so you can swim away, right? And play defensively by using your pretty good stamina to swim across the water. Good stamina, and give stego a good swim speed. Yeah, 100%. That'd be great. You know? And you could do that. But you're starting to get, and then in the forests, you have defenses to run into trees and bushes to knock off raptors. You have the defenses to deal with Cerados and Carnos. And you can start learning your tail in a more dynamic situation. You've gone from very, very easy tail swings, if they choose to fight you in the mud or in the water, to more dynamic tail swings with things running around you, right? But you still have trees and stuff that can be used against you, or you can use against them. When you hit adults, though, you know, you are now in the plains. You now have to learn how to bait out attacks in the plains, instead of using your line of sight to hide behind trees, maybe jump out and swing at something. And that's how you play. But you're learning, you're getting better and better at playing the stego as you get older. And we could then introduce dinosaurs that have moments of stego growth in them. For example, what I've described with sub-stego is very, very similar to Tenno. You know, in fact, it actually shares migration zones with the fucking Tenno. You see, but the Tenno instead goes all the way along here, whereas the sub-stego just goes here and up. The Tenno, however, from what we know from the Tenno migrations, are going from around here, all the way around here, and then up here, and then back here, like this. There's your migration along the coast, kind of. But good stamina, good swimmer. Tenno. Your juvie stage, maybe similar and akin to, I can't think of something right now, but maybe I can't actually think of anything right now that would be similar to it, to be honest. Unfortunately. Like maybe Dryo, but you can't really jump. But you know what I mean? The point is that, especially for Raptor, Rex had some very, very good examples of what they were similar to. The atmosphere is getting long. Now we have the last point to make about this game, which is the issues with the growth system, no matter what. So this is me basically accepting that even with my growth system and my changes to growth, I know that there are going to be problems. And this is the main one, which is it does not matter what you give the player will play however they want. Simple as that. So if you, the player, do not like what you can do in the game, you can either choose not to engage with the gameplay mechanics or just not play the game. Therefore, the game can either choose to make the growth longer but more interesting, or shorter but higher risk. Right? I think those two are the simplest routes the devs can take with growth that won't require a complete redesigning of some of the game fundamentals. Right? You either make the growth shorter, but it's high risk, high competition, so it's still hardcore survival, or the growth is longer, hardcore survival, more to lose, but it's more interesting. Fun. The issue, once again, is that the devs could add sparring for all creatures and in-depth growth, have different playstyles, balancing at all stages to have the confidence to go out there and play that dinosaur and enjoy it. But players who want to just sit in a bush because they want their adult dinosaur will sit in a bush with their adult dinosaur. But I also want to extend an olive branch to these people and say, I think I get why. It is because when you are new to this game, and this hit me like an epiphany when I was writing out this basic script, like just hit me out of nowhere. When you are new to the game, you are told to eat your AI, to run away from everyone else, eat your AI, sit in a bush, get to adults, and then play adult. Why? Because you want that, because in your mind, you want that player to enjoy what the game has to offer. And in your mind, what the game has to offer, the highest amount of satisfaction for the game is just getting your dinosaur to adults and starting to play the game. But what happens? That player now has their adult dinosaur and they have no idea how to play. And they get absolutely dogged on. Is that fun? You've inadvertently caused that person to get dogged on. As of course, they can find friends. Which is why I also think global chat being gone was a huge blow to some people. Because they'd get that adult dinosaur, they'd hit global chat, find friends, go out and meet them. And I have no problem with that at all. There should be community servers that are perfect for welcoming in new players into this game and showing them the fun that this game can be. When you play with other people, when you play by yourself, when you engage with what it has to offer. Servers where people aren't just KOSing and being dicks. Right? I, however, will be playing on the official servers, where I can go around being a dick, killing people, fighting people, engaging with all stages of growth, and kind of just assuming that everyone else I'm playing with is playing the best that they can. Because I find that fun. Right? And even if I want to be a dick, I don't kill every single juvie that I see as a juvie. I don't kill every single adult that I see as an adult. I select my hunts, I pick them, I fight. I find that fun. Right? There may be players who actually really, really just love the KOS of the game. There should be servers for them as well. Where you just spawn in, you can instantly grow, or like a sandboxing, where you just spawn in your fully grown dinosaur, and you just go have fun. Perfect. That should exist as well. But when it comes to growth, that is a core issue that the official servers definitely need to iron out and keep if people are going to want to keep playing the official servers when we get more and more customization for the unofficial servers. So, effectively, a thing to actually note out, and maybe a bit of, how'd you say, light-hearted advice sounds wrong. Heartwarming advice, right, to some players, is that while players that are good at this game and have survived in this game may tell you to just camp your bush, eat your food, grow up, and play the game, just remember that some of the best players in the game were intentionally giving their Carnos bad diets at some adult to stay that way for longer, as they were faster and had more stamina, which meant that they were better at killing raptors, packies, and in certain cases, Cerados. So even some of the best players in the game were keeping themselves at sub-adults. And in fact, Sometimes I will purposely grow a raptor with all hex diet to stay as a juvie, but more importantly, stay as a subadult for longer. So I can actually be a more unique presence in a group hunting stegos. Because I'm faster. You see? Just the main point is don't be afraid to go out there. You know? If the growth system changes and it's longer, but they add things to do in that growth, or maybe if the devs by some crazy miracle take my idea, if you guys like my idea, and if you don't, I understand. I would love to hear your ideas, right? But just take that risk. Because that's what the game's about. It's about survival. And it's survival of the fittest. And sometimes, in order to create something great, all it takes is for one monkey to think, maybe today I'm going to try walking out into that field to get that bush, you know, and pick that fruit. And maybe just from that one little risk, maybe it just caused you to be here watching this video today. And I'm sure that monkey is fucking proud of you. Well fucking done. Anyways, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, please like and subscribe and send a mail bomb to my house. Have a bloody good one.